Oh, we're live. Scrap the countdown. Hello and welcome to episode number 94 of the Wise Guys podcast. I'm John Tortorelli with Brandon Capozziello, and today we'll be covering all of the game ones, the relevant ones from day one of the NBA playoffs in 2023. But we've also got our NBA Finals picks and much more around the association, maybe some trade rumors, and also Dan Snyder selling the Commanders. This will be a basketball episode with mostly basketball segments, but when Dan Snyder sells the Commanders, you best believe we're going to at least discuss it and the potential ramifications of the Commanders maybe being a well-run team again. I mean, in my lifetime, Brandon, they've literally never been well-run, and we could see a change in the guard here. But how are you doing? How are you doing this fine Sunday morning before you watch your Heat get swept today, as you will very soon?
Well, they can't get swept today. It's can't get swept in one game, John.
One day at a time.
Yeah, one game at a time. Listen, I'm excited. We got playoff basketball. It was a great, great 4 games yesterday. I got to really catch the last two Knicks Cavs and Warriors Kings at the end because I was working during the Sixers Nets and a little bit of most of the Hawks and Celtics. But it was a great day of basketball. Playoff basketball is here. I want to give 2 shout outs that I saw today. Apparently, happy birthday to 2 GOATs, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and one Mr. Bill Belichick. So shout out, happy both guys born on the same day. That's pretty crazy. But yeah, I'm excited. I'm wearing my Vice Miami jersey, Dwayne Wade County. We ain't going to be there today, but we're going to Milwaukee and we'll see you there, 5:30.
Stop embarrassing yourself wearing that. It's not going to go well, Brandon.
Whoa, this is not embarrassing to wear a Dwayne Wade Miami Heat jersey, okay? It'd be embarrassing.
Serious is going to be an embarrassment. I don't know. So let's talk about the Sacramento Kings versus the Golden State Warriors. This was the last game and the best one of the day. Conveniently, it felt like the reverse order of how the game started was the reverse or the actual effect of what games were the best. So the Kings got a W, and they also got to light the beam, winning 126-123. Okay, so I felt there were a lot of similarities between this Kings game and the Knicks, where Sacramento does have more speed. They're going to play in transition more. And in this game specifically, what we saw the Warriors do was shift their focus to the DHO game at the Domantas Sabonis. They prioritized taking that away. Unsurprisingly, when you have Klay Thompson on your team, you know what a guy like Kevin Huerter can do playing a similar type of role. And so they took Sabonis out of this game entirely. He shot 5-17, but he did get in on the offensive glass, getting 5 offensive rebounds. And for that Kings offense, Brandon, what we saw was De'Aaron Fox going one-on-one, starting the game with not Jonathan Kuminga, not Andrew Wiggins, or even Gary Payton starting up on him. It was Dante DiVincenzo and your boy Klay Thompson, who in this stage of his career is not going to guard him well. And I felt like the Warriors were just poorly equipped to guard Fox one-on-one in this game. He erupted for 38 points. It was quite clear. This guy, he came into the league with his speed, and now it's his calling card. But over the last 5-6 years, he's just added more and more to his mid-range game, the shot making, the field, the ball handling, and he took over one-on-one, and that coinciding with Malik Monk off the bench dropping 20 points, that gave the Kings an edge in game 1 at home.
Well, you said Malik dropped 20 points, and he dropped 32 points.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So to just piggyback off that De'Aaron Fox, I mean, shout out this kid, right? He is a bona fide star. I know everybody, John included, are trying to jump him into superstardom. I just want to pump the brakes on that, and that's no disrespect. It's just there are levels to this game. He is a bona fide star, though, okay? This kid on his first ever playoff game went out there and dropped 38 points on, what was it, 13 of 27 shooting. I can't do the math off my top of my head that quickly. And then 4 for 8 from 3, which is 50%. I know I can do that math pretty quickly. So, but yeah, and De'Aaron Fox, I think he's the fastest man in the NBA now, especially since Russell Westbrook and John Wall have, gotten older and injuries have dealt up. I think De'Aaron Fox is there. Is the number. I mean, he's so freaking fast and quick. I know you said Klay can't guard him. I don't think it has to do with Klay not being. I just think, 1, the injuries with Klay, and 2, it's just the quickness. I mean, Klay's quickness is obviously still not back yet. It might not be back because he's in his mid-30s now and he's coming off those 2 catastrophic injuries still. And De'Aaron is just like I said, the fastest and quickest man in the NBA. So it's hard when you throw Gary Payton and DiVincenzo, who I love. DiVincenzo, shout out DiVincenzo. I was tweeting about him early in the game. He was making big plays. He's what I like to call, John, a championship player, a player who you want on a championship team, who can do the dirty work, scrap, fight, be a pest, play good defense, sound defense, assist the ball. He had a couple of good assists in the game there. Rebound, create havoc, just so many different things. Make threes. He can even get his own shot too if you need him to. Not at a high level, but he can. So I love Dante DiVincenzo. He is a real X factor in the series, and I thought he had a pretty damn good game last night. And even the great Doris Burke, after I tweeted about it, gave a shout out to Dante DiVincenzo. So I felt validated by the great Doris Burke. Shout out Doris Burke. But yeah, your boy Sabonis, John, I don't know if you didn't mention him. He didn't have a good shooting night. He rebounded the ball very well, 16 boards.
5 on the offensive end. Yeah, yep. I felt like with the Warriors, Kevon Looney and Draymond both did a very good job at the rim on him. And as somebody that's really been hard on Sabonis, he's playing with an avulsion fracture in his right hand.
Yeah, I didn't even know that. Yeah, I didn't even know that
season,
last
since
night.
December.
Yeah, I didn't know. I heard the announcer bring it up, and then I saw his hand, and I saw how red his freaking hand was, and I was like, Jesus Christ almighty, man.
Yeah, and I've been very critical of him this year for his lack of rim protection. So in this game, what gave the Kings the edge was those second chance opportunities and the transition attack. And he only had 2 assists because the Kings were taking that element away, or the Warriors were taking that away by playing more aggressive up on screens and not letting Herter get going. But as you mentioned, Malik Monk in his playoff debut, they showed a stat. ESPN.
De'Aaron Fox's playoff debut.
Well, it was also Malik Monk.
That's right. The Lakers
he never made it in Charlotte. They actually now have the longest playoff drought. He goes 14-14 at the foul line. That's the most, I think, ever in NBA playoff debut. And the combination of those 2 Kentucky guards, it's funny how I'm going to draw another parallel here. The Kings get Jalen Brunson and Josh Hart, 2 college teammates, one of their best seasons of the last decade. The Kings get De'Aaron Fox's college teammate and Malik Monk, and it's the best season of the last decade. And Trey Lyles as well in the second half. He hit some crucial threes. He went 4 of 6. Alex Len even, he's not been the most credible backup center this season. He gave them 12 good minutes. And for a Kings bench that's been very sketchy this year, they got really good play down the stretch from their wings, their front court. And I really was impressed. I have to repeat this with De'Aaron Fox because I do think he's gained to that Ja Morant level where in the regular season this year, he was playing at an All-NBA level, right? He comes into this first playoff game ever and has the second most in a debut. You look at how he plays today, and if you let him go one-on-one, he's going to torch you. You have to send doubles. You have to put an elite wing defender on him because of how versatile his on-ball game is. And so the more I watch him play, he balled out in the regular season, was the most clutch player in basketball. If he can build off of this in the series, and maybe Steve Kerr doesn't adjust by starting Wiggins in game 2, I mean, he could get to that Morant level. We're talking about him as a guy that averages 30 assists and 30 points and 7 or 8 assists in the postseason while doing it on pretty good shooting. I've just been blown away this year with how dynamic he's been, quite frankly.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think Wiggins can do a better job on Fox, but I still think Fox presents those quickness problems. And I mean, it'll be interesting to see because that quickness is an X factor, man. And when you got a guy who is 6'7", he's agile in Wiggins, but I mean, those feet get caught up and the Foxes. I mean, you saw it when he sent the double at him. That one play when Wiggins came. I know Wiggins tripped up, but Fox saw the double coming, and he was like the goddamn the road runner. Mimi freaking just darted to the rim. The speed is next level.
So some adjustments moving forward in this series. I love Dante DiVincenzo's game offensively too, but he's more of a guy that fits in on defense, not your go-to wing. They absolutely have to start Andrew Wiggins. He played 28 minutes. He was 7 of 16. He wasn't making the threes. And we saw
he basically did start. He basically did. But he didn't. He didn't start the game, but he played majority of the minutes.
And I think he's going to have to get up to 35 minutes, at least in this series, to guard Fox for most of those minutes. Gary Payton as well. It seemed like he was on a little bit more of a minutes restriction at 20. And Jordan Poole played 21. Poole is going to get attacked. We saw that versus De'Aaron Fox. I feel like the Warriors have the personnel, the bodies to throw at the Kings. They have three of them, three really good to elite defenders. It's just a matter of, okay, maybe you can slow down Kevin Huerter and limit Domantas Sabonis, but you have to not let De'Aaron Fox drop 38 a game. And I really feel like he could do that against this Warriors defense that has been elite this year at home.
Well, John, here's where I'll stop you. If De'Aaron, because I was just listening to Draymond Green earlier, and one thing he kept pounding over and over and over again is you got to live with something, right? You have to live with something. And if De'Aaron Fox is going to drop 38, I can live with that because it's De'Aaron goddamn Fox, right? What I can't live with is Malik Monk giving 32. What I can't live with, John, is two players off the bench scoring 48 points.
Right.
Can't live with that. That is not going to work. Okay. One thing you can live with is the starters for Sacramento. While Fox went 4 for 8 from 3, and he had a bad first half, the other starters went 1 from 12 from 3. That you can live with if you're Golden State. That will work.
And that's not going to be sustainable. I think Kevin Huerter going
Herter's going to start making his shots. Yep.
And Keegan going over 3 is unlikely.
I don't think it's sustainable for Fox to keep hitting 50% of his threes because he is a very low 30% 3-point shooter. He can make them maybe in the clutch more, but 4 for 8 is kind of, I see him more of like I just see him coming back to the mean. I think Sabonis can start hitting some shots. Keegan Murray was non-effective. I don't know. Did he get hurt or something, or they just decided
he only played 15 minutes? I'm not quite sure.
Yeah. He was 1 for 5, 0 for 3 from 3. So
that's why it helped that Trey was making shots. Yeah. So from that, I just think Sacramento was one of the 3 or 4 best shooting teams in the league this year. They took a lot of them. They made a lot. They're going to push it constantly. And for this Warriors team that they have a lot of older veterans between Steph, Draymond, and Clay, that's what's really going to put them to the stress test. How much do you want to run at these guys? And we're going to see that today with the Grizzlies. Mike Brown knows, okay, our strength is playing up tempo. And if you can continue doing that, it's going to make the game, it's going to make it more flow, make it flow better for Keegan, make it flow better for Kevin Huerter. And those two guys are guys that thrive off rhythm. I do think later on in the series, they're going to play a pretty huge role. This was Keegan's playoff debut. Huerter last time he played in the playoffs, or 2 postseasons ago, against the 76ers, helped get the Hawks over the edge by attacking switches. He can do more than just spot up. And his movement shooting is going to be a huge factor. I'm pretty confident. Now, my prediction coming into this was Warriors in 6. I still have that because I do think in game 2 they're going to show up. I think they're going to do a better job. And I also don't think Trey Lyles is going to line up off the bench either. Yeah. That would be on the edge in this game. But to say that this game didn't change my feeling a little bit, it would be an understatement because the Kings showed, hey, look, we're here to play. We're not the same old Kings. And they get their first playoff win since I was 2 years old. And, yeah, Vivek Ranadiyev after the game. You see De'Aaron Fox laying the B, and Vivek's like,
Now, I do want to say, you did say, like, it's not sustainable how badly they shot from the 3 ball, the Sacramento starting offense. And I agree with you there. But what's also not sustainable, and you hit on it, was Trey Lyles giving you 16. And I don't think Malik Monk dropping 32 is a thing you can bet on. Maybe 18 to 20 he can give you, but 32 is a little bit much. Also, Sabonis giving you 12. I think he'll probably have a better game, but I don't know if you meant to say this, but I think Golden State is going to win game 2. I think that for them to steal a game, because if they don't steal game 2, then now you have to win both games at home because we know how much they struggle on the road.
Having to win 4 or 5 games if you lose the first 2, I mean, that is something for a veteran team in the first rounds that does not go well. I mean, this Kings team this year, it's been better on the road. And I mean, for each of these 2 teams, you're sleeping your bed every night probably. It's like, what?
It's 90 minutes, I think. I think it's 90-minute drive, yeah.
Yeah, it looks like it's even less when I'm looking at it. And so I think for that reason, it's not going to feel like there's this wide divide when one team's on the road. I really think it's going to be, okay, we're going to get to game 5 or game 6, and the Warriors had that competitive resolve, but the Kings had that youth. And they have a coach in Mike Brown who I didn't think Steve Kerr did a great job in this game, neutralizing Fox. And he made the point that Draymond said, but I am just a little bit concerned that Steve Kerr could potentially look a little bit not unprepared, but I don't know if he's going to have the answer for this Kings offense with the way Mike Brown has created the script.
Listen, the playoffs is all about adjustments, all about adjustments. So it's going to be who makes the adjustments in game and throughout the entire series. And the Warriors are the experienced team. They're the most experienced team in the playoffs. They've been there. They've done that over and over again too. So I don't think you can ever count them out. And I think if anything, the players on the court will make more of an impact than if Steve Kerr isn't able to figure it out. But yeah, this is going to be a great series. My opinion doesn't change. I maybe it does go 7, but I'm going to stick right now with Golden State in 6. Now, if they lose game 2, I'll say Golden State in 7. Because then I think that they just, match at home. I think Golden State wins both games on at their house, and then back and forth, and then it comes down to Game 7. I think Golden State is very real to win a Game 7 even in Sacramento. So I'll stick with Golden State in 6 right now, but that's predicated on Golden State stealing Game 2,
which I fully expect. The big 3 every year when healthiest went to the finals. Now, talking about a game that was similar in some ways, but very opposite in the actual excitement, the joy of watching the game from a skill standpoint. The New York Knicks also went into Cleveland, like the Cavaliers, as an underdog in this game, and got the 101-97 win. Look, there are a couple of different issues with this Cavaliers team, and while coming into the year, I had very high expectations on them. One thing I understood is that their bench is dog shit. You look at the playoffs this year, you've got teams like the Nuggets and the Suns who they lack depth, but the Cavaliers, Caris LeVert coming off the bench, Dean Wade, those minutes were an absolute train wreck. I think, what's his face? LeVert made one shot. There's just a lot of names, a lot of guys like Ricky Rubio coming off the torn ACL, but no one you could actually rely on. Cedi Osman gave him some good minutes, but what the Cavaliers had in this game was constant 2-on-1s on the ball because the Knicks were pressuring them. They have Mitchell Robinson at the rim, and you kind of forget Isaac Okoro is out there because they're not playing him as their 5th starter, and that was what gave the Knicks the edge. On the offensive glass, they won this game, and the Cavaliers were just exhausted throughout the entire matchup by the end. Good news, there's 2 days of rest between this game and Game 2. But for the Cleveland Cavaliers, a team that has no depth this year, they'll go up against a Knicks team that is 8 or 9 guys truly deep that can all add something different. The big X factor in this series, I don't think it's going to be Julius Randle or Jalen Brunson. It's going to come down to that Knicks bench. It's going to come down to Immanuel Quickley, who missed all 5 of his 3-pointers, but still made a difference on defense. He's a player that, unlike Isaac Okoro, you actually like to play from behind the 3-point line. And I think this Knicks team, for how much they get on the offensive glass, against a Cleveland team that gets no rebounding from the 1-3 spots, this series, I had it going to 6 games. I think it's going to 7. This was an absolute rock fight. And though there weren't a lot of shots falling, Cleveland shot 32%, the Knicks shot 27%. This series might be the most exciting in the Eastern Conference.
Oh, yeah, in the Eastern Conference, no doubt, 100%. I'm going to say something, right? I underestimated the New York Knicks bench, right? I think I probably overestimated the Cleveland Cavaliers bench. Because with Brunson being in early foul trouble, the bench and the depth of New York was able to really pick up and not even just keep them in there. They had the lead going into the half. So Brunson played 9 minutes in the first half, and they had the lead. So that's just a big plus. You knew that was a big plus going into half, and that's not a good thing for Cleveland to look at. Arguably their best player plays 9 minutes in the first half, and you're down. That's not good. Now, the negatives for New York, I know Julius Randle is coming off an injury, but 7 for 20 and 3 for 10 from 3. That's not going to cut it.
I actually felt he played relatively well. He set the tone early with those 12 points.
Early, right. He made some good shots. Yeah, especially with that left side 3. But 7 for 20 is just not going to cut it, man. That's not going to work. That's not a recipe for success for this Knicks team. And maybe we'll get into him later, but RJ Barrett also played like crap. 2 for 12, 1 for 5 from 3. I'm not surprised. I called it once we started this show. I told you guys that, listen, he's a solo guy. All right. And I saw it. This happened for me. I first ever watched RJ in the March Madness tournament when Duke they played for Duke, right?
They did play for Duke.
Yes. With Zion and Cam Reddish. And just watching the second half late, I got an understanding of who RJ Barrett was. He wanted to be the guy. He didn't want to give the ball to Zion. He wanted to, even if Zion had a mismatch or even if Zion had it going, he wanted to be the guy. I saw that. So he's a solo guy and he's not a good shooter.
He's a guy that you have to build your offense around. And at Duke, he had a lot of the sets going to him. In the NBA, RJ Barrett's not Jimmy Butler. There's very few of those guys that can't be a good shooter and yet still are great. I think that's the thing. He doesn't fit in off the ball in the winning environment on the offensive end.
Nope. And IQ is going to have to play better. They're going to need him. What did he do? He went 0 for 5 from the field. Only played 24 minutes. So they're going to need him if they're going to win this series too.
Honestly, they're not going to need much though against this Cavaliers bench. Like my thought, Brandon, is that the Knicks should bench RJ Barrett. It's not because RJ stinks. He gave him 4 steals. He had some assists. It's a matter of to get RJ right. Have him play against that Cavaliers bench that has no meat on the bone at all. Get him into a rhythm in that second unit and start Josh Hart, who was huge for them on the offensive glass.
Yes.
That's where Emmanuel quickly didn't have a great game. It really doesn't matter because what you're up against is probably the worst bench out of any team in the entire NBA. I think it's worse than the Denver Nuggets bench. Okay, at least they have Bruce Brown, who they can credibly rely on. The Suns have Torrey Craig and a couple of different wings like Josh Okogie, who can really make a difference. The Cavaliers don't have that. They're basically playing 4 and 5 out there, especially if Cedi Osman doesn't shoot 2 of 3 in every other game in this series.
Yeah. I mean, listen, you're probably harder on Caris LeVert. I don't expect Caris LeVert to go 1 for 7 again. I think he's a better player than that. He's better than 1 for 7. But like I was saying with quickly, I don't expect him to go 0 for again, basically, is what I'm getting at. So it's going to be a different game when he's playing. And positives on the Knicks side. Brunson didn't get discouraged by the foul trouble in the first half. He came out in the second half, and let me get this right. Scored 21 points. I mean, shout out Jalen Brunson. And we talked about De'Aaron Fox's quickness. This guy's first step, there were a couple of times that I just went, dear God. So the guy wasn't, he did, I forget who was guarding him, but it was probably a Kuro or Osman, but just darted on him. And I was like, what are you going to do with that? What are you going to do with that? And then Josh Hart, like you said, 17 and 10. That's great. I don't expect him to give another 17 and 10 game, but that's the type of energy and spark that he provides off the bench, and you want him to start. I have no qualms with that. I think he's another guy like a Dante DiVincenzo I was talking about. Championship player right there. Championship player. But let's talk about the Cavs. Unless do you want to give Tibbs any credit, John? Or?
I do want to give Tom Thibodeau credit because he's a coach that does always prepare a lot in the regular season. And one of his philosophies is, and I love this, when I played basketball, I had coaches that get pissed at me when I leave a dog shit shooter open. I think that's a great philosophy. For a Cavalier team that gets really nothing offensively outside their backcourt, he let that 5th guy open, and that allowed the Knicks to play aggressive on the ball because while the Cavaliers are probably the best backcourt in the NBA, Brandon, they do have an issue, and that's a lack of versatility. They're going to attack you the same ways with the pick and roll every single time. It's not like they have, what's his face? The guard from the Nets, Caris LeVert, attacking you from the wings. No, he's going to have some chaotic drive, probably turn over the ball, if not brick a layup. He's a lot like RJ Barrett, where you just can't trust him off the ball. He's not scalable. And so when you look at the Cavaliers guards getting pressured 2-on-1, now they're kicking it to a guy like Isaac Okoro who's now in a rhythm. And I feel like Thibodeau, with his bench being ready, but also him being so aggressive on the ball and pick and roll, it took away what the Cavaliers do best, and it kind of neutralized that. In spite of Donovan, dude, he had 38 points. I didn't mention it. He played out of his mind, and that still was not enough to get the Cavaliers their Game 1 W. You are muted, though. You're still muted, actually. I think you're muted in StreamYard.
Okay, I got it now. Last thing on the Knicks that we talk about the Cavs. You said leaving wide open. That is a great listen. If Vacaro's on the court, if he can't, you're not making threes. I'm leaving you wide open. We've seen it basically against almost any team. If you have a bad 3-point shooter, Draymond Green, name the guys. I mean, Popovich was telling his players to literally back off of LeBron James, even when he was a Miami Heat on the Miami Heat. So it's just a smart game plan to do. One thing though, there was a play where Julius Randle left Garland wide open in the corner. And he ran out on, I forget who had the ball. I think it was probably Donovan Mitchell or something. He just like closed out on him in the middle, and then wasn't smart. And then the guy kicked it out to Garland, and he cashed in on the 3-point shot. You can't do that. You can't leave a Garland wide open from 3. That's just not a smart play. But onto the Cavs. You were incredibly high on them. Spider's going to need some help if they're going to win this series. He can't do it by himself, man. And I know he had an incredible game, 38 points. I think he shot 50%, almost 50, 14 of 30 from the field. But there were some shots that I didn't agree with him taking, that he was just heat checking, especially from 3, that I did not like. But he wasn't getting any help. I mean, Garland taking only 13 shots. I think he has to take more shots. I think he has to be more aggressive. 1 assist is not going to cut it for Garland either. I mean, I need you to be more of a playmaker. I know that's asking a lot, score more and assist more, but listen, buddy, it's the playoffs. You're the second guy on this team. We need you to produce.
He's playing 43 minutes.
Yeah. Mobley, I know you were incredibly high on him, John. I mean, you had some praise about him, saying he could be the next Kevin Garnett. Defensively, maybe. Offensively, it's
Kevin Garnett in his age 21.
You talked about Jimmy Butler missing some easy shots at the rim. This is your guy.
So here's the thing. You talked about it. You mentioned it. Darius Garland needs to play on the ball. If the Cavaliers are going to win the series, it's not going to be the way they played in game 1. They need to put him off the ball and have him attacking secondary closeouts and such, because Darius Garland had such a small usage rate in this game. And Donovan was taking those tougher 3-point looks. Yeah. Now, he made 6 of them, but he also took 16. Yeah. And I feel like Evan Mobley gave Julius Randle trouble. Now, he does lack some power, so Randle can definitely drive on him and get his shoulder.
He's gonna build into his body. He's still a young guy. He's going to build mature.
Mobley went 4 of 13, though, because he's not an above-average player at his position offensively yet. And at 21, you shouldn't really expect that, because with the Cavaliers having to deal with those 2-on-1s, there weren't many opportunities for him to not kick it out to an elite knockdown shooter. Yeah, Jenny making some looks, but for a team that shot 32% in this game, Mobley's best making slips and then a simple read, a dump-off pass, or a kick out. His best skill offensively is passing, but when guys aren't making shots, you're neutering that ability, and you're relying on him to be a scorer exclusively. He can finish plays, but against Mitchell Robinson, who had himself a stout game at the rim, it just, in his playoff debut, didn't come easy. Now, he was great defensively on Julius Randle. Randle has not seen that before. But 11 rebounds, 5 offensive, that was the positive. The negative was he wasn't finishing plays, and it shows. Look, Jared Allen's a solid offensive option. He had 4 assists, but Garland needs to have a way bigger offensive role to diversify this offense a little bit. And it's tougher because Garland's elite skill, it's not playing in isolation. It's playing in pick and roll. And the Knicks are well equipped to play that for as long as Isaac Okoro doesn't make shots. Yeah. The good news, Brad, is that I think he will start to make some. If you leave a shooter in the NBA open long enough, they're going to have some games where they shoot 3 or 4. And those games the Cavaliers will win. The question is, in all of the other games, there's probably going to be more of them than not in the series. How are they going to get that offensive production? How are they going to get that shot making outside their backcourt? Because, look, they may have the better duo. Yeah. They're going to need something offensively from those other guys, whether it's Evan Mobley stepping up and being that two-way reliable presence. That they don't have a two-way player on this team, really. It is Evan Mobley. They need him to be that. Yeah. Or is it one of these hopscotch wins off the bench who have all been unreliable this year? I don't think it's going to be LIllard.
Listen, I mean, you make a lot of good points. One thing I want to speak on that you said about Mobley and his passing ability, I instantly thought of that one play where Mitchell got the ball, pump faked the 3, laser pass to Mobley, and then Mobley did the behind the back to Allen. That was just a great play, a great ball movement. But where are they going to get this from? You say, listen, you say Mobley, you shouldn't expect that from a this is the playoffs, man. We need you. We need you to do something, man. We need you to 4 for 13 is not going to cut it.
It's a lot like Bam.
Yeah. Karis LeVert. Well, Bam has a better mid-range game at least. But yes, I see what you're saying on that. Karis LeVert, like I said, I don't expect him to go 1 for 7 or 0 for 3. Is he liable to do that? Yes, but he was taking a lot of bad shots that game. I think he was pressing a lot. So he just needs to get a little more comfortable, play more in himself, and I think he'll start knocking his shots down. Ricky Rubio only gave you 6 minutes. He had this guy is just so, I mean, he's got a pretty damn good handle. He made one great move where he crossed over to the right, had a wide open layup, and just don't know what happened, man. He missed that.
-9 in 6 minutes.
Chetty Osman, he came off the bench. He didn't play the entire first quarter and then came in the second quarter, which I was happy about because I was like, oh, you're not going to play Chetty Osman? But yeah, defensively, he couldn't handle Jalen Brunson. Jalen Brunson's too quick for him.
He wasn't terrible defensively. Like, I think he gives them enough of what they need.
He's tough. Yeah, he's tough and he's going to fight. Like, right, he's not going to give up. But I just think the quickness of Jalen Brunson is going to be a little too much. Now they were doing I feel like it was in the first half. They were doing I know it was only 9 minutes, but they were doing a pretty good job of defending Jalen Brunson well. Where I was like, they were basically guarding his left hand. Like they were saying, go right. And I thought that caused a little bit of trouble at Jalen. But then I guess they I didn't notice it in the second half. So they either got away from it or Jalen just started taking advantage of it. But yeah, I think it's got to be Garland, LeVert. Everybody's got to step up. And I think Mitchell's got to take a couple less shots. Like I want him taking at least 20 shots a game, but 30 is a little too much. You got to get these other guys involved. And I think they have to, Garland especially, I think he's got to be more aggressive. I do. He's got a very good mid-range game. So he's got to be more aggressive in getting these shots. And you say the Knicks are very good at guarding the pick and roll. Well, listen, how many times do we say when we watch a basketball game, we say, wow, that's great defense. And then the shot's going and it falls. You're like, that's just better offense. That sometimes you just got to do it. You got to match it and you got to go pick and roll. If you believe in Garland and Mobley, well, then let's go. It's the pick and roll league.
That's true. It's just the Knicks perimeter players, not their line, are much bigger. Josh Hart is going to do a lot defensively on the glass, and I think that's the holdup where they're going to play physical. My expectation for the series, it was Cavaliers in 6. You know, Brandon, I'm going to make it Cavaliers in 7 just because I've watched this Cavaliers offense throughout the regular season. I've been aware it's not just the Knicks rebound, it's the Knicks pace. The Cavaliers were at the slowest pace in the league. This was something Romaine talked about. And the Knicks in transition, they got out and running. It was the run with the Bulls. And that's something the Cavaliers don't do as well. 2 smaller guards in the backcourt. They're not a very good transition defense. That was their one, I guess, concern in spite of being the number 1 ranked defense this season. So the Knicks transition attack, the offensive rebounding, and the pick and roll coverage is what I think is going to make this probably the closest series out of any in the first round.
I'll say this. I'm sticking with Cavs in 7, but I'm worried. And if their bench doesn't play better and they don't get any, more offensive production from other guys other than Mitchell and Garland, I'm telling you right now, the Cavs can go home in 5. Okay, because listen, the Knicks are deeper, they play harder, they have the energy. It's these guys are here, man. And this they did that in Cleveland. I know game 1 is the toss-up, and I always say that, but this game 2, listen, you cannot lose game 2. I know must win is kind of hard to say if one game in, but
more than must
you win. Drop game 2, you're going to MSG, and you think those fans are going to be wild, man.
They're not coming back if they go down 3-1 if they lose 2 of the next 3 games. I know a lot of people tend to overreact to game 1, but there is a pretty big red flag here. Is that the Cavaliers, they're reliant on 4 players, and the Knicks have 8 guys.
Yeah.
Okay? And this is also a very big series for a younger team in Cleveland that, the Knicks went to the playoffs in 2021, got the tar bean out of them, and now they have a little bit more experience. With this Cavaliers team, most of these guys don't have experience outside of Donovan Mitchell. Yep. Jared Allen is in one playoff setting, and that's what's going to be the other concern here, the fact they're still learning on the go.
Yep.
Now, What series do we want to talk about next? Hawks Celtics or Nets 76ers? The Nets 76ers game, it was funny. James Harden went ballistic from 3-point range. I think the stat was he was 7 of 13 from 3, but 1 of 8 on twos. James Harden is really a game one type of player to me, Brent, where he's going to light up. He's going to have these big scoring performances. And I was impressed by the 76ers and Joel Embiid, especially in this game. He didn't have his best offensive matchup, but the Nets, a team that does not have much size in the front court, we'll put it that way. They couldn't finish a lob attempt with him dropping back in coverage. And I think we saw pretty clearly they're not going to get to the rim at all against Joel Embiid in this series. Now, the Nets dominated in this. All right, the 76ers dominated while the Nets did shoot well in this game. And I think this is going to be a super competitive 5-game series where Mikal Bridges had 30 points, even though he only had 2 in the third quarter. The Nets do have a lot of different players in the perimeter. They have a lot of skill. Mikal's breaking out into a star, but they just simply have no answer, I think, for Embiid and James Harden. That's why this series, to me, it's just not very watchable. I know it's going to happen, but I do know the Nets are going to make shots. The 76ers, unlike the Cavaliers Nets, they're both going to shoot 35 to 40% in this series because 2 of the best shooting teams in the league. It's just a matter of, what's going to happen. It's Joel Embiid.
Yeah. Well, one thing, I think they did a pretty damn good job. Again, I didn't get to catch this game, but I took some time and listened to some people that are, knowledgeable about the game. And one takeaway was they did a pretty damn good job on Embiid in terms of throwing doubles at him and getting the ball out of his hand, and basically making the others beat you, right? Goes back to the Draymond quote. You got to live with something. You touched on it a little bit, John, but the 76ers made a franchise playoff record 21 3-pointers in their win against the Nets. James Harden made 7 of Philly's 3-pointers. Only AI with 8 has made more in a playoff game in franchise history. Guess you know what I tweeted when I saw that stat? So the odds of them doing that again are slim. That's not going to happen again. If it's a playoff franchise record, you're not going to.
But they were number 1 in 3-point percentage this season.
They are, but I just don't expect that type of output. Now, I picked the Philly in 5, but because I just expect Brooklyn to be able to get one at home, either game 3 or game 4. Maybe Philly takes I could easily see Philly going up 3-0, Philly being like, game 4, they don't really get up for it, and then they take care of business back home in Philadelphia. But yeah, there's not much really to say about this series. You say it's going to be a competitive 5-game series. Probably Brooklyn's going to fight. They're a gritty team, but we know Philly's going to be able to take advantage. I expect Embiid to have a couple of bigger games. He's going to be able to take advantage of the double team somehow and have some big games. So,
only 26 points. I do want to shout out your boy PJ Tucker. I mean, he was great in this game. 5 steals, offensive rebounds. He made 2 shots. Him and Paul Reed played phenomenal.
You want to know what PJ Tucker is, John? He's a championship player.
I think he truly. If the Sixers this year go to the conference finals, we have to talk about PJ Tucker as one of the greatest role players of all time. What he did in Houston, I mean, he was scoring Anthony Davis in a playoff setting all by himself almost.
You know what also he reminds me of? I know it's different, but he's like a new age Dennis Rodman.
Yeah. I mean,
I know he's smaller and stuff like that, but he is kind of that new age Dennis Rodman.
He kind of reminds me of like a Charles Oakley, the more of the enforcer type. But I see you come from.
Rodman was an enforcer. Rodman ain't playing no shit.
It's a different type of enforcer of PJ, where he's more of an in your face, burly type. Rodman was more finesse in some ways, and he was pure hustle too. But remains the chat. Shout out to FLB. They have no way to guard Joel Embiid 1-on-1. Or the Harden and Embiid pick and roll. That's very true. And part of it is this is not a Tyrese Maxey series against this Nets team with their length, but it is a series where you're going to throw doubles in Embiid, but you have elite shooting everywhere. You have D'Anthony Melton, you have Georges Niang. Maxey will make shots. He was 3 of 5 from 3 in this game. Tobias Harris even. I think Tobias Harris, one of the most inconsistent role players. He pisses me off, but he can make open 3-point looks. You can't leave him open because he's a player that gets into
They don't use him the right way, John. He's not they don't use him the right way. He's not a spot up 3-point shooter. He can do it, but he is more of an ISO player who can go get your own play. I mean, he's averaged 20, 21 points per game before. They don't use him the right way because it is a James Harden and Joel Embiid pick and roll, get the ball to Embiid on the post, that type of game. That's really what it is. And then Tobias just has to be a spot up 3-point shooter. It's kind of like what happened to Chris Bosh and Kevin Love. That third guy has to take a different role. So now Tobias has to be a defender, which he really wasn't known for before, and a spot up 3-point shooter, which he really wasn't before. He can do it, but it's not his strong suit. So I don't hate that. I don't think you should hate that much on Tobias. He's in a role and he has to play his that type of role.
When he puts up a 7-point game in Game 7, here's the thing, Brad. You're very critical of RJ Barrett, but he's best in the setting where he's going one-on-one, not going one-on-one, but having a larger role in the offense. Okay. Now, I'll admit, RJ Barrett's an empty calories player, but so is Tobias Harris in many ways.
RJ Barrett is not even close to the shooter Tobias Harris is.
No, but he is a way better ball handler and attacker of the rim. So I feel like
that's fine.
Well, they have different skill sets. They're similar type of players. They're just not guys, I think, that will start on a championship team because of their inconsistencies and lack of role versatility.
Well, I think Tobias is more. Yes, he's more equipped to be on a team like, I don't know, the Utah Jazz or something like a Lauri Markkanen, where he can be the number one guy on a team that's not going to make the playoffs or anything, and he can go get you 20, 24 points a game. Like I said, he's been put in a role that I don't think he particularly fits, but he's doing his damnedest. I don't think you can really, hate on him that much, man.
I'm going to hand him when he's getting paid that much money. That's Elton Brand's fault, but we can kind of brush past the Hawks. They lost by 20 points. I stopped watching. They're down by 30 in the second half, but Brandon, Trae Young in his last 7 playoff games is 8 of 49 from 3-point range. That is the worst. That is the least amount of makes. At a 16%, 16% is what he is shooting in his last 7 games from 3. No player has made less threes on more attempts. I don't know where ESPN gets these stats, but whoever gets the ESPN stats needs to be making at least in the triple figures,
I don't know what
6 figures a year, because
I want that guy on
the type of stuff they pull out of it's truly elite. It's generational stuff. I don't know where you find it. I look all the time for weird stats on StatMoose and different sites, but dude, I don't know where they're scourging this information from. Whatever database they have to filter it out, it is truly one of a kind.
Maybe
NBA.com has it, but I check NBA.com. I don't think they have that.
It's next level stuff, man. It is next level stuff. But yeah, you speak on Trae Young, his, and I told you, listen, every time Trae Young took a deep 3-point shot, I was like, yeah, keep doing that. Please keep doing that. He thinks he's Steph Curry. He's been told he's the next Steph Curry by fans when he was coming out. He's not.
I think growing up, you think you're Steph Curry, you can make shots like him. But one last thought. You had Jaylen Brown first team All-NBA when Romain was with us. Yeah. And I laughed at you, Brandon. It turns out what's come to my senses, for the last couple of days, more people have put Jaylen Brown first team All-NBA. Now, in this series, the Celtics, this duo is going to dominate the Hawks on the wins because they have no answer for Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. And the more I watch this type of matchup, the more I say, all right, the Celtics are definitely going to be due for a stinker game. I think this is still going to be a 5-gamer. But, man, Tatum goes 10 of 23, Brown 12 of 23. They both put up 25. This is the best window in the NBA, and the Hawks have no answer for it. You go to round 2 versus if they have to play this oh, my God. If they have to play the 76ers in round 2 and Tobias Harris is guarding Jason Tatum, Brandon, it's over. It's a wraps for the 76ers for that very reason. And that puts them up in the conference finals. Why would the Bucks be in the Celtics, man? I do not feel great about any of their wings, including Chris Middleton with his knee injury guarding these two Jays. And it's not because I love them so much. It's just a matter of there's no team on the wings that can truly match up with them that well. The only squad in the East is really the Nets with Mikal, Dorian Finney-Smith. Kim Johnson got cooked last year by Luka Doncic. But there's not many teams that have two-way wing defenders, and that's what you need to beat this Boston team because of how dynamic those two are.
Yeah. I mean, first off, you brushed over something. So do you have names of these people that said
I do. We had an OG.
People respected? Like you respect these people's opinions and stuff?
Yeah, for the most part. We had OG on Pick a Side, and he made the point where this is what he said. He goes, How is Jaylen Brown not first-team All-NBA? Okay, in the history of the NBA, only 8 duos have averaged, what was the stat? Only 8 duos have had 2 first-team All-NBA players. Those were Moses and Dr. J. It wasn't Elgin and Jerry West because they played before the All-NBA teams. Kareem and Magic, Michael and Scotty, Stockton and Malone, Nash and Stoudemire, Kobe and Shaq. The
Wade and LeBron?
2010s. It wasn't Wade and LeBron. They never were. The 7th was it a third Laker duo? LeBron and Anthony Davis. That was the most recent. And there was an 8th in there, Brand.
All right. Well, listen, I just want to say, because
the 8th was Larry Bird and Kevin McHale in the 80s. So he was making the point, look, Jaylen Brown's averaging 27 points and 7 rebounds, which I hear, and that's pretty impressive. And he was like, hey, look, if the only other number 2 to be averaging 27 points was Kobe Bryant, who made first-team All-NBA, and Scotty did it averaging 17, that, Jaylen Brown should be a first-team All-NBA guard. And then I started to warm up a little bit once I heard that, Brandon. A little bit. I still want to have him first-team All-NBA. No way, no how. But that, to me, it's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I just want to say, first off, shout out OG. I've heard him on TikTok, and I respect his opinion a lot. He knows what he's talking about. So shout out OG. It's always great to be validated again with great minds think alike is like I like to say. So, but yeah, with the Celtics, in terms of them running through the East, I do see it happening pretty easily. Atlanta, I think they'll get through. I think Philly will take them 6 games, and I think they beat Philly in 6. And while I love Giannis, it's just this team, and we'll see how the Bucks play. They play today at 5:30. We'll see how they handle Miami. I expect them to beat Miami in 5, but it'll be interesting to see how the games go, how Middleton does look, because that's going to, I think, go ahead.
Oh, I was saying the games aren't going to go well.
Well, you don't know. You're making an assumption. All right.
You don't have PJ to throw on Giannis. You have Bam guarding Giannis. While you're asking to be number 2.
First off, we're not guarding Giannis one-on-one, most likely. It's going to be building a wall.
Okay. Who's building the wall? What parts do you have?
You're throwing. Listen, you throw it. You just throw people. Listen, I don't want to hear it. Okay, I'm tired. John.
I'm letting you know I have time. John, you don't have the personnel. You have zero depth in the front court.
Well, you don't.
You have no one to stick a double on.
I'm sick and tired. Okay, I don't want. Listen.
But you're right. Continue on Chris Middleton. You made a good point there.
I did. All right. You're going to make me cry, honestly, because I'm sick and tired of this Miami team. All right. Just stop piling on. I know what happened. I know what we have, and I know what we don't have. All right. Just let me live. But in terms of Middleton, this series is going to be more built on what he can give and where we see him going from now. So I think he's going to be the guy that everybody's going to be looking at and seeing what is he going to provide and how he looks in this playoff series. So yeah, you want to get into the our finals predictions?
Yeah, let's do it. My finals prediction come into the year, it was some stupid shit. I think I had
who was it?
I had the Nuggets going to the finals, and I still do. I had them winning the NBA championship. In fact, I saw the NBA leak the script, and that's what I came to the conclusion.
That was definitely.
I had not the Bucks going to the finals. I think I had the Celtics going to the finals, which wasn't that bad. But I tend to think that my take was worse than that. My take's never bad, but here's my NBA finals predictions, Brandon. Okay. A lot of people are not going to agree with me here, which I'm glad about. Round 1, I had the Nuggets taking care of the Timberwolves in 6 games. Minnesota really routed OKC good the other night. Then the Suns-Clippers series, I don't think that's going to be competitive. I think Phoenix is going to dominate in 5. Mm-hmm. They're going to play the Nuggets in round 2. And then I've got the Lakers versus Grizzlies going to 6 games, but I think the young guys are going to wear down the Lakers in transition, and they're going to win that in 6. Then I've got the Kings versus Warriors, even after last night's loss, Golden State taking that in 6 or 7 games, which will put them against the Grizzlies, a round 2 rematch from last season. Now, I think the Grizzlies, their lack of front court depth, it's going to make them a worse team than the last postseason, but John Morant missed the second half of that series. And the Warriors taking that ultimately in 7 games, and they're going to play the Denver Nuggets after they beat the Phoenix Suns in round 2. I don't trust the Suns' depth. I also think DeAndre Ayton this year has been a piss poor rim protector, really bad. And I think against Jokic, because of how great he is on the ball, he's going to open things up. The Suns don't have any depth, so they're going to run them out. They're going to run them out at the gym. If they have no depth, and the Nuggets like to push the pace with their shot making, I think the Suns' defense, I have to trade in Mikal, Cam Johnson, and relying on guys like Josh Okogie, who are very one-way street, they're going to take care of the Suns in 6 or 7 games. It will be a competitive series, though. There's no doubt, because offensively, Jokic is going to have a hard time guarding Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. Then I've got the Nuggets beating the Golden State Warriors in the conference finals, Brand, a lot of people are going to laugh at me because last year they lost in 5 games, but this Denver team is different. You give Jamal Murray 2 series to ramp his way up and Michael Porter Jr. on the floor, Bruce Brown. I think they have enough connectivity. And the Warriors, well, they definitely have Kevon Looney. Last year, man, in that series, Jokic cracked the code. So I've got the Nuggets going to the NBA Finals where they're going to play the Milwaukee Bucks. I think the Bucks are sweeping Miami Heat. Maybe it goes to 5 games. It's just a bad matchup for Miami altogether. And unless Max Strus puts up another 8-point game, which probably won't happen. Then I've got the Cavaliers beating the Knicks in 7 games. That series is going to be interesting. We'll see how that plays out. The Hawks losing to the Celtics in 5 or 6. And the 76ers winning in 5 versus the Nets. So the Sixers will then go on to play Boston. I think Boston wins that. They've got nobody to guard Tatum or Brown. And they're going to play the Bucks after they beat the Cavaliers ultimately in the second round. The Cavs, much like the Grizzlies, are a top 8 team in the NBA, but they just had a lot of holes, which is going to lead to me having the Bucks go into the finals. But for this Chris Middleton knee injury, I feel like it's time to acknowledge it. Chris Middleton's not a top 50 player anymore. In the regular season, he missed most of the season. He's already a guy that's very inconsistent, streaky shot making, and now he's had multiple knee injuries. I mean, he's like a simple mid-range jumper, and then he was missing out of the regular season. I have really no faith in Chris Middleton staying healthy. I hope he does as a basketball fan, but that's a concerning trend where the guy, he's not making any big-time moves, any athletic plays, and he's simply getting hurt by like a turnaround, typical mid-range jumper. I think he might not be available for them in certain parts, just like last year in the postseason. And what we talked about last year is going to lead to why the Bucks don't win the championship this season, because, man, Giannis can't make a jump shot. He can't make a shot outside 5 feet. And if Chris Middleton's now on the floor, now you're relying on Joe Ingles and Grayson Allen to create a lot more than what they're truly best suited to do.
Okay. I mean, it's interesting that you don't trust Middleton's health, but you got them going to the finals. So that's interesting. But
still do.
So for me, round 1, I'll start on the East side because I think that's a little more easier to go through. I got Milwaukee beating Miami in 5. I got the Celtics beating Atlanta in 5. I got Philly beating Brooklyn in 5, and I got Cleveland taking it in 7. Although that could honestly switch either way. It doesn't really matter. Both teams are losing the second round because they're going to have to face Milwaukee, and Milwaukee is most likely taking care of them in 5 or 6. Then we got the Celtics and Sixers. And like I said, I have the Celtics going, beating the Sixers in 6 games. So I agree with you. I have the Celtics and Bucks. I think a lot of people have the Celtics and Bucks, except for a lot of Philadelphia and Joel Embiid fans. Celtics and Bucks in the conference finals, I think it goes 7 games. And like I've said multiple times, my preseason pick to go to the finals on the East side was the Celtics because they are the deepest team in the NBA. And they are the reigning defending Eastern Conference champions from last year. And their one major problem was getting a true point guard, and they got that in Malcolm Brogdon. And I think that just makes them that much better. I know Ime Udoka is gone, but Joe Mazzulla has stepped up a lot. Listen, if he was willing to, if he blew that game yesterday, that would have been a major red flag. But they were able to stifle them 2 times where the Hawks made big runs to try and close the lead, and they were able to stifle them. So that shows a lot for Joe Mazzulla. But I know it's the Hawks, but it just shows that he's able to, calm the team down and get them back into their sets and their rhythm.
By the way, the Hawks made that comeback while shooting 5 of 29 as a team from deep.
See that and you know what? That just brings me to a point that I want to go side tangent real quick. I want the mid-range to come back. I want it to make a comeback because it's such a beautiful shot. And it's such an effective shot and efficient. I know 3 is bigger than 2. Okay, you don't have to throw math at me. I can count. All right. But if I make a lot of mid-range shots and you're not making your three-pointers, I'm going to win that game.
Here's the thing, Brandon. You may like mid-range shots from stars. You do not want to see DeJounte Murray hoisting 9 mid-range shots a game, making 4 of them.
Obviously.
You don't want to watch that. You want to watch guys like Chris Paul, Kevin Durant, Devin Booker.
I don't want to watch DeJounte shoot from 3.
But yeah, okay, I think I'd rather watch DeJounte tee up some open 3-point looks, some catch and shoot threes than some mid-rangers, because while I may make them at a 43% rate, it's just not something that's sustainable. And Chris Middleton's a great example of this too. You want to see mid-range shooting from elite mid-range shooters, not average ones, because in order for 3-pointers to be superseded by mid-range looks, it has to be guys that are super elite at mid-range to then make up the math gap. That's what it comes down to. You've got to shoot 50% from mid-range for it to be equal to 3-pointers. Because on average, teams shoot 35, 36% from 3, and most teams shoot somewhere around 44 to 46% from mid-range. If you're an average mid-range shooter, you're going to be an average offense taking a lot of those looks. But in the regular season, you are right. You have to be able to diversify your portfolio, and you have to have balance. Last year, the Suns didn't get to the rim, and they took too many mid-rangers, and that cost them in the Mavericks series. But the Mavericks, a team that takes a shit ton of threes and layups, got nothing to mid-range. That's why they add in Kyrie to diversify their offensive attack and make them a more versatile team to guard.
Well, that's also just, a preference point too of watching the NBA, and I think it's just a better game to watch when it's more diversified shots instead of just a 3-point contest. I know I'm not the only NBA or basketball fan that's out there that's saying you take too many 3-pointers now. It's too many at this point. So on the East side, I got the Celtics coming out, winning a 7-game series against the Milwaukee Bucks in the Eastern Conference Finals. And now to the West side, which is a little bit more confuzzled and a little more fun. So I got the Nuggets beating the Timberwolves in 6. I got the Lakers taking the Grizzlies out in 6. I got the Warriors still in 6, but I could easily see it going 7, beating the Kings. And then I have the Suns beating the Clippers in 7. Now going into the second round, it's going to be the Nuggets taking on the Lakers and the Suns taking on the Warriors. In the Suns-Warriors matchup, man, that's a tough-ass matchup, dude.
KD versus Steph. We finally get it, baby.
We do, but well, not finally. We've got it once again. Because listen, Phoenix's starting 5 is so good, but the Warriors bench, man, it just blows the Suns bench out of the water. Crap, that's a really good series. That's a tough one. Listen, that's going 7. I can't. I don't. Did you have those two matching up you had those two matching up, right?
No, I had the Warriors facing off with the Grizzlies.
Oh, that's right, because you don't have the Lakers winning.
Draymond is a
help me out, John.
tough matchup for the Warriors. Just because of how much they want to operate mid-range, Draymond's going to get underneath them. And I think that'd be very tough to get to the rim if I'm Phoenix, because I've got Draymond and Looney there. So the Warriors match up better at the Suns, and they just have more.
So would you take Golden State in that series?
I would. That doesn't matter. Yeah. I would take them in 6 games probably.
Oh, okay. I listen. I can't pick one right now because honestly, I'm literally tossing up. I need to see how both teams play a couple more games, but it's going 7 in my opinion. Then I got the Lakers and the Nuggets, and I think the Lakers are gonna be able to take them out in 6 or 7 games. I just don't think Jokic can handle AD, and LeBron is gonna. I mean, I just who the hell AG? Okay, that's cool. LeBron.
AG is a fantastic matchup for LeBron. Let me tell you something. AD can't handle Jokic. He wants no business. He can't handle all that.
Okay, but what about on the other side?
What about it?
How is Jokic handling AD?
AD can't make a jump shot. That helps. That helps. If you can't shoot as a big and you're playing at the rim, Jokic is best dropping back. He'll save some energy.
We'll see.
And Aaron Gordon, he's a lot like Dylan Brooks. He's a go-getter.
Yeah.
If you underrate him,
guess what? LeBron's still going to average 27, 8, and 8.
Is it on 46% or 53% shooting? That's the difference. That's the difference in the series. That's 7%.
That doesn't blah. All
we'll
right.
watch this year. We'll
So,
come back.
Hey.
John, you're right. You're right.
Now let me talk to you. All right. Because I got the Lakers going to the Western Conference Finals. On the other side, it's either the Suns or the Warriors. Right now, I'm going to go Warriors. Okay. But we'll talk about that series later when it happens and comes to fruition. Warriors, Lakers. Now, when we did talk about this matchup before, I said there's just I know Draymond's tough as hell, and I know Kevon Looney's tough as hell, but goddamn, man, I don't think either of them can handle AD. Honestly, God, is LeBron gonna make it to another finals? That's tough. All right, right now, the Lakers will be in the NBA Finals, taking on the Boston Celtics. And I have I don't want LeBron to win another championship, John. I don't want to hear from LeBron fans, man. I don't. I'm taking the Boston Celtics to win the NBA Finals in 7 games.
Yeah.
Let's renew that LA Boston rivalry.
The last 7 or 8 team to make it to the finals was the 1999 Knicks in the lockout shortened season. I like the Lakers as a playoff team, but they're gonna have an uphill battle here with their depth.
It's all about matchups, though. It's all about matchups. I mean, you can't tell me that the Lakers can't win any of those series I just named them in. You can't tell me that it's going to be a blowout. Like really, John. I understand the 7th seed thing, but this is such a different year where we've never seen a 7th seed as stacked as this one. You don't see a 7th seed with LeBron and AD. That doesn't happen.
Yeah, but LeBron's not at peak levels, right?
Well, at peak, okay. LeBron's peak is arguably the best ever. So he's come down a little bit, but that's still better than literally anybody else.
And I also think, Brent, part of the Lakers' issue is Darvin Ham. Like
I can see that, and inconsistent. He's not inconsistent. He's a new head coach. He's got a lot to learn. He's learning on the job, basically.
Yes.
And I agree with those points. You tell me the LeBron head coach. Tell me the elite head coach he's had.
Tyronn Lue.
That was 1 year.
Mike Brown.
How many years ago was that?
That was
Mike Brown. The Mike Brown now.
No, he's gotten better as a coach.
Okay, but that's what I'm saying. Like, those
Cavaliers defenses were top 5, and
don't start to bring
a pretty incredible job with their talent. Guys.
He also made a finals with David Blatt.
Yeah.
I love how you said that.
That was 1 year, Brandon, not Tyronn Lue. You had Tyronn for 3 years in Cleveland.
I forgot about that. That's apologies, but that East was also weak. But again, this is in retrospect. People always bring up the fact that LeBron never had a Hall of Fame caliber head coach on his skid. So I listen. The head coach for me is not going to bother me, and especially this is the NBA. This isn't the NFL. The NFL is more 50-50 with the coaches. The NBA is 75-25 with the players to coach ratio.
I do like your Celtics pick though, because if Middleton's not healthy,
I'm confident that pick. The West is wide open to me. The East, I'm very confident. I'm steadfast since day one preseason of the NBA. The Celtics are making the NBA Finals, and I think that they break through this year, and I think they win the championship. To be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean the NBA is as open as it's ever been. There's 6 teams that can credibly win the championship. 2 of them are in the East, but 4 are in the West. I think there's 4 with the Warriors, Nuggets, Suns. I have to pick my 4th carefully here. Not the Clippers, I'll tell you that much. Definitely not them. Either the Lakers, Kings, or Grizzlies. One of those 3 teams.
Okay.
No, whatever one just gets the hottest.
Yeah.
So we talked about all of the day 1 games. I want to ask a question. What NBA round 1 series of yours, the playoffs, is going to age like milk? For me, it's going to be Warriors over Kings. I have them winning in 7 games, but I feel like there's something about this Kings team you haven't seen yet, and I am a little bit concerned about their ability to defend De'Aaron Fox because his game's not getting to the rim. It's a level of talk about mid-range shooting, Brandon, in the upper paint. He is elite from 2 levels of the floor, and they're a much younger team that's well coached. I think that series that one could get me.
So what by age what do you mean by that? So like,
they're a younger team that loves to push the pace.
Yeah, but you asked me which series do I think in round one. So you mean like which one's going to be the
age
best?
like milk. Which one's going to age the worst of yours? Which one do you feel least confident about? That's what I'm asking.
Oh, in my pick, Cavs over Knicks.
That's reasonable.
Yeah, I underestimated the Knicks bench, and the Cavs literally, like a lot of people are saying, have really only two guys that can consistently go get their own shot, and Garland needs to be more aggressive. Like we went over it though.
So we're gonna talk about some trade rumors, and then at the end of the show, Dan Snyder for not him, the Commanders. So Damian Lillard in his postseason presser said, "Look, if these morons want to rebuild, and we're gonna be doing this the next couple of years, not making the playing tournament, then I'm not saying I'd request a trade, but I would like to compete." What we're seeing in Portland is leverage. Damian Lillard, by being so loyal, has almost lost leverage because the Trailblazers know his card. He wants to stay. And so that gives us a longer runway. Now, is it true Dame just had his best season? Yes. Is it true he's going to turn 33 years old? Yes. We can't take for granted Damian Lillard playing at top 10 level. He would have been all NBA this season if his team didn't stink. And I look at Portland, a team that's really had no ambition. Damian Lillard wants to gain some leverage because that's the only way he's actually going to have a team built around him in time. Shaedon Sharpe is my age. He's not going to be a quality starter for 2 years, probably. Anthony Simons averaged 28 points this year without Dame. It kind of bothers me when a team has two desirable choices, Brandon. You can go down either path. It's like picking a career. And it's not like either path is bad, but you have to pick one thing. You can't pick neither. We're seeing this year with the Warriors. It's probably better if the Warriors just picked one timeline to be a better team this year. They'd have a more clear direction. The Trailblazers have two young stars, the sixth best draft odds of getting Victor Wembanyama. Think about this. The Blazers, after stinking this year so bad in spite of Dame being amazing, have a 10.6% chance of landing the greatest prospect since LeBron James. You pair up Victor Wembanyama with Anthony Simons, Shaedon Sharpe, and a guy like Nasir Little, some fine role players on the outskirts, doesn't matter. That Blazers young core might be the best in the conference because you have three stars in the making. And yet Portland is still trying to win games, but not really. Once we get to the 55 game threshold this season, we realize we're 6 games under, then we start the tank and we waste teams' career. I'm getting to this point where I don't give a shit if it's more enjoyable to watch Dame drop 70 points. I'm just at a stage where we saw Reggie Miller never get a championship, but at least the Pacers built a finals team around him. And then 2004 built another contender. The Blazers have never actually picked a timeline. That's why they haven't built around Dame properly. I want to get your spin. A team like the Miami Heat, of course, they have no assets to get him, but is there an actual out? Blazers just kind of dig their foot in the sand and say, you know what, Dame, we know you want to stay here, but it's the best thing for us as a franchise to move on. Pick a timeline, get some quality draft odds next year when you're not going to be here, and do you a favor. Is there a 10.6% chance too that Dame might get traded to a team like Philadelphia or New Orleans, some team that can use a star like him on the perimeter? What do you think? Is there some potential here? Is there a door opening to that possibility?
I mean, I hope. I go back to the conversation we had almost a year ago now, where I basically said I don't want to talk about Damian Lillard anymore because Damian Lillard was very content with being a Portland Trailblazer and not competing for championships. Now, I guess after going through an entire season of being a loser, he has, come to this realization. He had an epiphany that, oh no, actually, I don't want to spend 4 or 5 more years doing this because it's not fun. That's literally what every NBA fan has been screaming at the rooftop for you, Damian Lillard, is that it's not fun. We respect the loyalty. We do. We're not saying go join a like Kevin Durant did to the Warriors or something like that. We're saying go pair up with another superstar. Make a dynamic duo because we believe you are that good. I remember saying him in Philadelphia would have been perfect with him and Embiid. All right. Him in, New Orleans, if Zion Williamson can ever stay freaking healthy, that would be in a hell of a freaking lineup. I know it's kind of unfair too, but him in LA with LeBron and AD, that would be stacking the deck, but they'd probably be the favorites. Anyway, this guy needs to go somewhere. Dame, your talents are being wasted. Your career is being wasted. You didn't even make the play-in this year. So, yeah, he needs to get out of there. And I don't know if it's all on Portland, or if it's all on Damian Lillard, or if it's both parties, right? But I think an amicable split is coming, and I think it needs to happen. I don't know who the team is, John. I'd love to say Miami. I don't know what we'd give up for him. Philadelphia is up there. That's a weird package to make up. I don't know. It's more of a wait and see thing. If I'm going to speak on Miami real quick, I don't want to say this, but I kind of have to. You will not win a championship with Bam Adebayo as your second best player.
No, it's
not going to happen. And I love Bam. I love the strides he's made. He's a hell of a freaking player, and he's somebody who you would want on your team. But he's a third guy. He's not a number two. And maybe Bam needs to go, because I don't think bringing Lillard in and getting rid of Butler is going to make that much of a difference. I think we'll be somewhere in the same spot, if not just take one. I mean, what's one step further? We were just in the Eastern Conference Finals last year in Game 7. So I don't think that works. I think the best suit is possibly Bam. Having a package around maybe Bam and Hero. And I know that's maybe too much for Lillard, but I don't know. That's the best thing I can come up with. I would hate to get rid of Bam, but like I said, he's not. You can't win a championship with him as a number 2, and I hate saying that, but it's just the truth.
You count as number 3. I think, or shout out to Alpha B in the chat. He made the point multiple times. Bam is best playing with another big, one that can shoot ideally, like a Miles Turner. Just get into one that can play the 5. So Bam's responsibility shifts from being the number 2 scorer, number 2 playmaker, and also the defender, guarding on the perimeter, and also protecting the rim. That's just like an impossible task. Talk about Anthony Davis. He can't do that. No center really can. But if you pair up Bam with a guy like Miles Turner, and then a more credible number 2 to Jimmy Butler, I think it's quite clear he could start on a championship team. He's probably the most versatile defender in the sport. It's just a matter of his responsibility shifting, because what Miami asks out of him is too big of a role for him to then play on an elite level in that responsibility that he has on both ends of that's like a superstar responsibility that he's got to do that. So I think Miami, if they can get some better shooting next year, they should. I think their shooting won't be 27th in the league. I think Bam's going to be, I think honestly, Bam is going to be, when his career is over, one of the 5 or 6 greatest players in the franchise history. Up there with Lonzo Mourning, truly one of those core pillars that for a decade was a starter on playoff to contending level teams. He's been to the finals, the number 2. If he didn't get hurt in 2020, who knows what could have happened. As for Dame, what team could possibly give a compelling enough offer for Lillard? There's not many teams out there, because a lot of them that have the assets aren't looking to make the jump right now.
No.
The Pelicans foolishly made that jump for CJ McCollum, and they extended him to a pretty bad contract now. But real quick, I don't want to go on a side tangent, but we've got people that really disrespect, I think, CJ McCollum. CJ McCollum is the reason they went to the conference finals. I know Dame dominated in that Thunder series in 2019, but CJ McCollum played on Dame's level. And the Western Conference Finals, when Dame shot out to 40% against the Warriors and they got swept, CJ McCollum was also the one in Game 7 versus Nuggets who won them that game. Dame played like shit. He shot, I think, 20 or 30% in that game. CJ had basically the game-winning block for Jamal Murray. He was the best player in Game 7. It's a matter of getting Dame a star complimenting or near that level CJ McCollum played at a 25-point-per-game score. But I want to make very clear, we've got Darren in the chat. He's saying that it's not Damian Lillard's best season. He got knocked out the last 3 weeks ago. If you watch Portland this year, this was the best season Damian Lillard has ever had.
If you're talking him, just looking at him in a vacuum, not looking at his team.
Being said, I don't think I have to even preface that.
Yeah, I know.
Damian Lillard, it was his best season against the foul line. His finishing was at, I think, 65 or 66%. And his three-point shooting, his volume, his playmaking, this was the best version we've seen of him. And I think it's really lazy of people to say otherwise. And that's why it matters. Like, Dame is a top 10 to 12 player in the league. And for many contending teams, he would be a huge upgrade that would move the needle between you being knocked out in the second rounds and you going to the finals. There's one team. This won't happen because defensively it'd be so bad. But Ja Morant and Damian Lillard would be such a compelling duo. And I think for a Grizzlies team that has young assets, they have the Warriors first round pick in 2024. They have Zaire Williams, a former top 10 pick. They have all of their draft picks. They have a couple of very young, nice, compelling pieces. And Desmond Bane will probably be part of that. He's 25 next year. But I think Memphis would be one of those interesting teams where if they get knocked out again this year in the second round, they're going to make some sort of big time move. It's just Nadim wouldn't be the right fit the same way Donovan Mitchell wasn't. I like that idea. I think that'd be pretty fun watching those two play Jaren Jackson.
Here's a couple of teams out there, right? Minnesota, they could strum up a pretty good package to maybe go with Ant and Lillard as their two main guys. The Clippers, if they think Paul George maybe isn't it anymore, they can build a package around him and get Lillard and Kawhi in there. And then on the Eastern side, I definitely do think the Knicks might want to plunge. But those are just a couple of teams right there that could go. And you know what? The Bucks too. The Bucks. You maybe I don't know what the deal would be, but you get Giannis and Lillard in there. I mean, hell, that's a freaking duo right there. So there's some teams out there. It's depending on what they want to plunge or not. And I do hope we see Damian Lillard in a different jersey next year on a team that's actually a true contender.
Yeah, if RJ Barrett wasn't being paid $100 million, I think the Knicks.
Well, he would be in the.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think zero teams want that contract of $100 million. But I definitely think the Knicks have all the draft picks, much like the Grizzlies too. At least get the volume right. The Suns, they got Kevin Durant because they had the picks, and Mikal Bridges was then the add-on, honestly, because no one expects him to become a star the way he has in Brooklyn. I think the Knicks are one of those players, but their best asset, Brandon, is probably, excluding Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle, Emmanuel Quickley, who they're going to have to pay $100 million to upwards this year. Like they're going to pay him at least $20 million a season because the cap is about to spike with the new TV deals. So I think the Knicks have the assets, they have the picks, but there's very few teams. There's honestly none. Maybe the Pelicans still could, even with CJ McCollum. It just wouldn't make much sense to pair those guys up. That actually has the assets, and they feel like they're one point guard that's a lead away. The Pelicans have Dyson Daniels. They're going to have a top 14 pick this year. And then they also have, it's kind of where it ends, actually. They have the Lakers pick next year. So they have a couple of assets. But long story short, I think the Blazers are going to keep Dame, and they're probably going to waste his career. But the good news is if they get Victor Wembanyama this year, there is a possibility that happens, though unlikely. They will be a contender next year because the one thing they've lacked is a center that can space the floor, catch lobs, do a little bit off the dribble, and also can protect the rim. None of that Yusuf Nurkic brings. If you swap out Yusuf Nurkic, who's already injury prone, with Victor Wembanyama, I think next year this Portland team would be a 48-win squad. They would be Sacramento. I strongly believe that they would be a player in the Western Conference. Victor could be one of those guys that makes an all-star team as a rookie, and I really compare him to Duncan and David Robinson, where he may not be physically ready, but his skill level is more than ready to come in and really be maybe an all-NBA player. And
I have to listen. There's a lot of hype behind him. I have to see it to believe it. That's a little much in my opinion for right now, but fair.
He is the best prospect of the last 20
years. I said there's a lot of hype behind him, but again, I have to see it to believe it. It's just that's a lot for me. A young rookie kid coming in there, and that's a lot. That's a lot. What you just said, it is
7'4".
I get it. Listen, I know. I've seen. I've heard. I know. I've seen. I've heard, John. But that you cannot stand there, and say that's not a lot of pressure you're putting on that kid. That's a lot. Like I said, I have to see it to believe it.
You're going to be familiarized with Victor real soon, Brent. Let me tell you.
Okay.
I think
that's fair.
There has not been a more safe prospect to ever select. And there's one concern, which is injuries. The kid's doing these weird monkey drills to work on his foot and his toe strength. His toe strength. You don't see 7'4" guys doing that. I think he's thin enough to be one of the exceptions. Maybe he can have a durable career in spite of being an absolute power.
That's the one thing that I would say is the durability.
If that's the case, if he's really taking at 15 to 17 years old the necessary precautions to build up your lower body strength in that fashion, he's doing stuff that's never been done before in his training. Shit, I really think Victor is something the NBA has never seen. I'm pretty excited for it. Pretty excited, but because like it actually takes away brand. This is probably the best draft class since Luka's class, where you've got 4 or 5 guys that can all be all NBA players, and maybe 2 more that can be all stars. We don't talk about Anthony Simons, Jalen Brunson, Shai Gilgeous, and Trae Young. When we think of 2018, we think of Luka versus DeAndre Ayton. And now in this class, there's not DeAndre Ayton to be taken ahead of Luka or ahead of Victor, fortunately. Also, GMs are smarter nowadays, but yeah, I mean, Victor, I think, is a better prospect than Luka, honestly, because of his position at center. It's just a type of skill set he has that is very rare. That's enough of my tangent. Do you want to talk about some football?
Let's talk about some foosball.
Let's talk about some Washington Commanders. So as someone that's about to turn 20 years old, my entire lifetime, the owner of the Washington Commanders / Redskins has been Dan Snyder. And aside from, like the whole being a terrible person type of thing, a penny pinching, meddling owner that is suing fans, maybe because during the housing crash, a real estate bank or I guess you could call it a real estate agent. Some people couldn't actually maintain their season tickets. So Dan Snyder actually decided to sue them until the Washington Post got a hold of it. That's one thing. It's another thing to kind of be a meddling owner that doesn't hire the right people, sets a pretty terrible standard, terrible culture, doesn't rebuild the stadium, and doesn't want to win. And you can tell that pretty quickly with owners nowadays. Now Dan Snyder is selling the Washington Commanders for a price of $6 billion. Josh Harris, the 76ers owner, in fact, he's not the best owner either, but he's not Dan Snyder, is buying the team with Magic Johnson being a part of the group. It's kind of cool, Brandon. Magic Johnson, he's part-time owner of the Dodgers. He owned the Lakers up until 2010. Now he gets a little piece of this Washington Commanders franchise that, dude, before you and I, in the 70s, and the 80s, and the 90s, they were one of the premier teams. They were one of those franchises that no matter who the quarterback was always a Super Bowl contender. They have, if memory serves, 3 or 4 Super Bowl trophies. I don't remember. They've been nowhere near that since. And the glory days of the Dan Snyder era was 1 year with Robert Griffin III, 2012. And since that point, they've only made the playoffs 4 or 5 times since he's bought the team. Now you look at what Washington could be with their type of talent on that roster. They're probably going to get a new coach in here, I think. Ron Rivera may not be here after this year if he doesn't have a winning season in year 4. I think we're seeing a little bit of a shift here in energy with the Commanders where, look, Josh Harris doesn't have to be the best owner. But if you can at least not be meddling, you can let your GM do his job, and most importantly, hire the right people to then build a pretty good football team. They've got a lot to work. How do you feel about this? Do you think the Commanders could restore what they once were pre-Dan Snyder now?
Listen, I've been much higher on the Commanders than you and Justin have been. I picked the Commanders to be the second best team in the NFC East coming into last season. And I think that actually they're the third best team in that division going into this season. I still might be going blindly in there, but I just truly believe that they have talent on the offense. They have talent on the defense. Call me a sucker, but I do think Ron Rivera is still a good head coach in this league. They got Eric Bieniemy in there now as the offensive coordinator. Listen, I don't believe in the quarterback, Sam Howell, mostly because I haven't seen much of him. But the team is very good around him. Can they get it? Listen, that NFC East always stirs up something every year where it can flip on its head. I think the first thing is they need to get a quarterback. That's what I think, because I don't know about Sam Howell. I really don't. I know he was a highly touted prospect one of his years in college, and then I think his last
going to his senior year.
Yeah, and then he kind of fell down, but. I hope for Washington fans, hell man, hearing about them back in the 90s and 80s and 70s, that team was, tough smash mouth football. They had great O-lines, great run games. So I hope so. because listen, when the NFC East is always going to be a tough division, but it starts with the quarterback for the Commanders. It really does. But a great thing getting Dan Snyder out of there, because I mean nobody wanted him there. The fans didn't want him there, so it's good to just get him out the door. At least it's a breath of fresh air for that team.
That's the perfect way to put it, because the Commanders / Redskins have had a lot of bad luck as a team too. You talk about Robert Griffin's injury. He then let go of Kirk Cousins, and you pivot from Cousins to a more proven quarterback in Alex Smith, and Alex has his tragic leg injury. Yeah. Alex was on pace that year to bring them to the playoffs, and a lot of us thought that Alex would be the steady guide in that organization. Now, Jay Gruden was their coach then. It's not the best coach. That was his last year at the team. But you pivot from 3 different quarterbacks that could have been a franchise guy, but due to injuries and you just not paying Kirk Cousins, because even though he's having some really good seasons there, you want to give him the guaranteed money. That's an ownership thing, because you have to put that money in escrow account. Yeah, I think Washington, like you said, is truly a franchise quarterback and a breath of fresh air away from becoming a steady team here in the NFC East. Because the Eagles, they're going to have to pay Jalen Hurts soon. Yeah. The Cowboys, they're committed to Dak Prescott. And the Giants with Daniel Jones, they feel stuck in mediocrity in some ways. The Commanders are that team with so much invested into their defensive line. They've got a lot of skill on their offense between Jahan Dotson, Brian Robinson, and most notably Terry McLaurin. You put a young quarterback here on a rookie contract that could be Sam Howell. Sam Howell has a lot of skill to his game. And yeah, I think the coach may not be Ron Rivera. He hasn't had many winning seasons. He's well respected. But I think for a conference that hasn't had a reliable contender, some years it was the Cowboys, now it's the Eagles. No, this could be not only the Commanders restoring order, but the NFC East, Brandon, truly becoming one of the best divisions in football, because the Giants have their coach. The Eagles have their roster, which is insane. They have their GM, which is probably more important, and they have the right values. The Cowboys are always going to be relevant at least, and they have a pretty good roster. They've drafted well in recent years. Now the Commanders are up next, and I'm pretty excited as a football fan, because their fan base has been through too much. It's been a fifth of a century. It's been 25 years almost that they have not had any semblance of this leadership or structure. But I think this is where that starts to change, and that's going to be exciting. I actually, unlike you, I like the Commanders name. I think it's going to, in 20 years, I think Commanders, like the Jets and the Cowboys, it's going to fit in well. I'm a big fan of their division name, to be honest with you. But yeah,
there's no way to like shorten it, like a nickname. Like you always got to, like you can't. Right. No, you don't.
But for a team that's won 3
Super
Bowls, for a team that's won 3 Super Bowls, I think they're gonna win their 4th in my lifetime, at least. Dan Snyder didn't feel like it was trending that way. So. Yeah, man, they've won 3 Super Bowls. They were truly one of the 4 or 5 best franchises, with the Dolphins, the Cowboys, the Steelers, and then the Raiders. Like, that was the top 5.
Yeah.
And they fell from 5 to like 32nd in just 24 years. That's all I've known. It's just poor management. Now that finally changes. It's good to see the bad owners getting out of here. Unfortunately, there's more bad owners than good. But yeah, man, as a football fan, I'm excited. I hope that they do well and they find the right management to become a good team. Yeah. I know that was 10 minutes of the Redskins / Commanders. That was a lot. Wow.
It's all right. Anything else we want to discuss down? No topics?
Most notably, shout out the Dolphins for signing Choose Anderson. I don't care. Justin, he got me my Ain't Shit Funny shirt. We want to shout out Justin. For all of you guys in the chat, drop some W's for Justin. The show would not be possible without him. We're gonna have him back on hopefully soon.
Orange and blue skies.
But the Knicks, if they win this series, he's gonna come lit up. Look, this shirt. I wore this to the gym yesterday. I felt pretty level-headed. It's one of my favorite shirts. And hey, look, it's not a jersey either. I'm not a big jersey guy, though. I've got 4 of them behind me. So yeah, man. Shout out to Justin. Not anything else that's relevant. So with all that being said, it's going to wrap up episode number 94 of the Wise Guys podcast.
Yes.
Thanks so much for watching, staying to the very end. And as always,
basketball.
We'll come back to you
Can't
with
wait.
deeper analysis of the first round of the playoffs. Nuggets in 4. As always, till next time.
Stay classy.